Good evening, and welcome to our Top 5% evening. This is one of my favorite nights of the year because it's a chance for us to recognize our top 5% of our senior class, as well as have them recognize their most influential staff member. So it really is a great opportunity for us to celebrate the relationship that our staff has with our students and the impact that we make on each other, quite frankly. So as we talk about our students, and you guys have been here for your academic awards nights, you've been here for senior salute. The top 5% is the top 25 students in this year's senior class. Of the top 25 students here, the lowest GPA in the room is 4.49. Yes. So it truly is the best of the best. And it's exciting for what you guys have accomplished. You should be proud of your hard work, and that really is 4 years of hard work. That doesn't happen over a couple of good weeks. So let's celebrate that success and your hard work and accomplishments. So great job on that. Parents, once again, thank you guys for supporting us, supporting your children, really from obviously birth on, but certainly the last 4 years where we've been a part of their life. So thank you for all you do to allow us to educate them as well as support them so they can do what they do and learn really well. So parents, give them a round of applause. As I was thinking about tonight's relationship of students with our teachers and our staff, and really it's not just our staff, it's Strongsville City School staff. So they can pick anybody they want to, they can pick that's influenced them as an educator. This year, they did all pick teachers. We've had it in the past. They picked administrators. They've picked guidance counselors. They've picked custodians before. So we've had a wide range of people get picked for this award. What we do is we ask our students, pick the most influential person in your educational time here at Strongsville City Schools. So it's exciting to see who they pick, why they pick them. And I really wanted to kind of encapsulate why you would pick someone as your most influential educator. So I was going through my stuff earlier today about my comments and what I wanted to say, and I thought about an article that I shared with some undergraduate students earlier this year about 10 things influential teachers do. So I'm going to read those 10 things to you, and I think you're going to find tonight that people being recognized definitely exhibit those things. So here we go. Provide structure, teach with passion and enthusiasm, have a positive attitude, incorporate humor into lessons, make learning fun. Use student interest to your advantage, incorporate storytelling into lessons, show interest in their lives outside of school, treat them with respect, and go the extra mile. And tonight, the staff that are going to come up here, you're going to see exhibit these 10 things. And they've had an impact on your children's lives. And they've impacted them in a variety of ways. And the reoccurring theme year after year, and tonight is not going to be any different, is that it's not about the content. It's about the learning. It's about the relationship. It's about helping them become better people, not necessarily a better mathematician or a better English student. It's about the relationship they have. And we're going to celebrate that tonight. So we're excited for that. Without further ado, we're going to get the evening started here. We're going to leave script here for 2 things real quick, then I'll get back on script because my bosses are right here, so I want to try to behave myself the best I can. Earlier this year, each year our senior class has one winner of the Phi Beta Kappa Award. And this year's winner is Julia Foust. Julia, can you come forward? And as part of being recognized as our Phi Beta Kappa Award winner, they get to pick a teacher that is the Phi Beta Kappa Teacher of the Year. This year, Julia selected her math teacher, Mr. Mike Scott. Mike, please come forward. Guys, congratulations. Yes, good. And this one is, for me, the next one's truly a first. I got a text message last night from Miss Vendetta. I'm planning to come to top 5%. Typically, that wouldn't be a shocking thing when my teachers want to come to the top 5%, be recognized and celebrate their students. This is unique for her because she gave birth 48 hours ago to her daughter. So I got the text message. I said, "Are you sure?" Yeah, that's worth clapping for. Yes. "Are you sure you want to come? And is your doctor okay with you coming?" She's like, "No, I'm getting out of the hospital tomorrow. I'll be discharged. I'll be home. I'll just come over." She made one request, and the request was, "Could I possibly leave after I get my apple?" I said, "Well, it's not a prison. You can do whatever you want." But I said, "We'll put you first so you can get home to your baby and what, your 2-year-old son?" Yes, so she is a busy lady right now. So we are going to move typically go alphabetical. We're going to move her up in the program so she can go first tonight so she can sneak out of here. And if I learn anything from my own wife having kids, when you have a new mother, give them what they want. So we'll keep her happy and try to behave tonight. So we're going to break order here a little bit this evening. So Miss Vendetta and her husband can go home to their newborn. So we're going to shift here. Our first student tonight we're going to bring up is Ann Papandreas. Ann is going to go to Pennsylvania State University and major in biobehavioral health. Ann, please come forward. And Miss Alana Vendetta, please come forward as well.
High school students rarely have the opportunity to have the same teacher for 4 years straight. I'm not entirely certain how I was lucky enough to be one of these students, but I am beyond grateful that I was. Madame Vendetta was among one of the many teachers who made my high school experience both memorable and worthwhile. Over the past 4 years, I've been able to grow close to Madame and have been inspired every single day of knowing her. As we experienced Madame build her own family, we as a class built a family together in AP French. Though I'm not majoring in French, from Madame Vendetta, I have acquired the life skills far more major than a major. How to be strong, how to be soft, how to treat others, and how to treat myself. At the end of my sophomore year, no one knew that Madame would be our teacher the following year for Honors French 3, so we all said our goodbyes, figuring that this would be our last year together. We were handed a list of 30 life lessons from Madame. If I wanted to read you my favorites, I would have to read all 30, so I tried to choose just a few. Number 2, always give 2-handed hugs. Number 10, don't put on jeans right after you lotion your legs. Number 13, try not to say no offense if you're about to offend someone. And number 30, love yourself. You were brought into this world for a reason. Respect yourself, believe in yourself, and strive for greatness. Room 111, that weird cramped room in the media center, and room 305 have always been a home for me in this school because of the comfort that Madame brings to all of her students. I've laughed and I've cried in all of those places, and I've always trusted Madame to be there for me through the thick and the thin. She has taught me the value of independence and being able to be there for myself, but more importantly, she has shown me that it's okay to ask for help. I've been inspired by Madame to understand the value in showing love and being open to receiving love. I've been empowered by her to have confidence in everything that I do and to never undervalue myself. I've been enlightened by Madame to adopt a curiosity for knowledge beyond just that acquired in the confines of the classroom and to experience life for all that it has to offer. No words could ever truly convey my gratitude for everything that I've learned from Madame Vendetta.
Miss Vendetta, stay up here with us. Yeah, don't leave us. Our next student is Mary Strumpel. Mary will attend The Ohio State University, and her major is currently undecided, and she is honoring Miss Alana Vendetta as well. Mary, come forward.
Okay. Mine is not as long as that, but comes from the heart. Okay. Yours good, Ann. Okay, over the course of my academic career, I've had many influential teachers and I've taken interesting classes, but the one constant over the past 4 years has been Madame Vendetta in her French class. Having Madame since I was 14 years old, and now still having her as a role model in life as I'm about to graduate and head off to college, has been an extremely gratifying experience. Madame has not only served as a wonderful teacher, but as a mentor and friend. In addition to learning the French language and culture, Madame has been able to teach me life lessons and instill values in the classroom for the past 4 years. I can confidently say that Madame Vendetta has played a major role in shaping my high school experience, and my schooling career would not have been the same without her. That's what I wrote, but I don't really think I can put into words how much it's meant to have you as a teacher over the past 4 years. So I'd just like to say thank you, and that list that Anne was talking about that has all the life lessons, I still have that hanging above my bed, and I look at it every night, so thank you for everything.
One more, yeah. Stay up to one more time. Our next student is Rubab Syed. Rubab will be going to Case Western Reserve University, and her major is pre-medicine, and she is honoring Miss Alana Vendetta.
Hello, everyone. So, when I was asked to give the name of the teacher who had had the most meaningful impact on me, there was one teacher that immediately stood out in my mind, a teacher whose class I've had the great privilege of being in for all 4 years of my high school career, my French teacher, Madame Vendetta. From freshman to senior year, I've had a sampling of classes from all different departments in the high school, but French always remained a constant for me. We were a group of people that moved together from one year to the next. Over this extended period of time, I've come to know Madame not just as a teacher, but as a friend, and she has definitely taught me more than just the grammar and semantics of a foreign language. A few weeks ago, in covering the last major theme of our year, beauty and aesthetics, each student in the class chose some manifestation of beauty they perceived in daily life and showed how their chosen subject was reflected in various cultural perspectives. With every form of beauty covered, from food to clothing to art, there was very plainly an overlap between the different cultures and countries. Learning to recognize and appreciate these commonalities that exist between all groups has been the single most important thing Madame has reinforced in me over our 4 years together. Looking so closely at the homogeneity present between people has fostered in me an understanding, a greater capacity to empathize, and it's exactly this mindset and this ability that compels me now towards a career in the service of others. Madame's love for French is clearly expressed in her character day in and day out, and her passion is absolutely catching. She inspires me to take my interaction with the French language beyond the walls of our classroom, applying it in a holistic sense to my maturation as a teenager in the 21st century. Thus, I think it's only fitting for me to close with a line from The Little Prince, the first book I read entirely through in French, outside of school, just out of the love of learning that Madame has instilled in me. In English, the line reads as, "It is the time you spend on your rose that makes your rose so important in a garden of roses." I've had a lot of great teachers during my time in high school, all of whom I'm so grateful to have known and to whom I'm really indebted for their guidance. But what makes Madame unique to me is the depth of the memories we've made together over the course of my high school career. They are memories and lessons that I will retain with me in college and beyond, and for all of them, I must say to Madame, thank you. Thank you for coming.
Now go home. Okay, yes. Okay, thank you. Now, Mr. Vendetta, go home. Take her home. That's enough for one day. So now we'll go back to the traditional order of alphabetical from this point forward. Our next student is Taylor Baszynski. She is going to go to The Ohio State University, majoring in pharmacy, and her honoree is Mindy Bedrosian.
Mrs. Bedrosian's AP chemistry class ruined my life. Or at least I thought it did as I struggled through it my junior year. She was one of the toughest teachers I've ever had, but I can honestly say that no teacher has taught me as much about a subject or about life in my entire academic career. Thanks to Mrs. Bedrosian, I learned that school is not about earning A's, that there is a difference between memorization and true understanding, and the importance of always putting my best effort into each and every assignment I do, activity I'm involved in, or situation I'm put in. She challenged me to work harder, not be embarrassed to admit when I was wrong and ask for help, and understand that there is so much more to life than the grades on my transcripts. I can never thank her enough for all that she has taught me, and I will always appreciate the class that ruined my life. Thank you.
That was it, wasn't it? So you're doing pharmacy?
Our next student is Alexandra Bischof. She is going to Wright State University to major in psychology. Her honoree is Mr. Mike Seck.
I think I speak for everyone when I say that high school has been an absolutely life-changing experience. It was full of experiences, both expected and unexpected. For me, I never expected I would have a teacher quite like Mr. Sack. On my first day of sophomore year, I stepped into AP Human Geography and had absolutely no idea what the year ahead of me had in store. Though the class was both difficult and very challenging, Mr. Sack made sure every student was able to succeed. He provided us with the freedom and responsibility to succeed independently. He made sure all of us, including myself, were given all the help we needed. But it didn't stop there. Mr. Sack extended his help beyond AP Human Geography, and a year later, he gave up his free time to help me succeed in a class in which he was not even my teacher. He was determined to help me succeed in any way he possibly could. Each time I came in to see him, he would tell me, "If you need anything, I'm here. No matter what it is, Lex." Mr. Sack is the true meaning of going above and beyond for a student. Thank you, Mr. Sack, for making one of the most unexpected aspects of high school one of the most memorable.
Sydney Cornelius, going to The Ohio State University. Her major will be biochemistry, honoring Mr. Kevin Klein.
Sometimes it's easy to forget to have fun during these monumental 4 years, when it seems like it only consists of never-ending studying, tests, projects, and those last-minute papers. But now these 4 years are ending, and we're moving on to more studying, tests, and last-minute papers. But now these 4 years are ending, and we're moving on to more. Oh, I just said that. My bad. What Mr. Klein taught me is how to have fun while learning. He reminded myself and others that it's not just about the grades and points, but rather the knowledge you acquire and the fun in understanding the world around us. Whether it be his interspersed life talks or coming up with the perfect projectile to flick his dry erase markers, he always finds a way to relieve the stress and infuse positive thinking. Thank you, Mr. Klein, for always pointing out the important things in life and teaching me how to enjoy learning.
Garrett D'Abato. Garrett will be going to The Ohio State University, majoring in finance and economics. His honoree this evening is Miss Elisa Bartel.
Throughout my 4 years at Strongsville High School, I have had countless valuable and rewarding experiences both in and out of the classroom. These experiences, however, would be lost without the dedication of the caring, knowledgeable, and enthusiastic staff that I've had here at Strongsville. When thinking of a teacher who had the biggest impact on me or who was the most inspirational, I can only think of one teacher, Mrs. Bartel. Mrs. Bartel was my English teacher freshman and junior year. She was also one of my advisors for National Honor Society. Mrs. Bartel changed the way I look at learning. Freshman year, Mrs. Bartel and I did not see eye to eye on one thing. She wanted me to read books for English class. Initially, this idea seemed ridiculous. I did not like to read then, so I questioned the benefit of reading these books. Mrs. Bartel was patient with me, of course, and showed me different ways to look at literature to make it seem more relevant to my life. Junior year, I had her for AP Language, which also ultimately turned out to be one of my favorite classes of my high school career. Mrs. Bartel helped me to dramatically improve my writing style and also taught me how to dive deeper into ideas that seemed simple on the surface. The most memorable thing about Mrs. Bartel is that she cares. She cares so much about her students. She never shies away from staying after class to answer questions or is never in too much of a hurry to help a student who just does not quite understand. Even today, Mrs. Bartel is always eager to hear about how things are going or what my future plans are. She helped to make me the student I am today. Mrs. Bartel, thank you for all you have done for me and for being an amazing teacher who I can always count on.
Our next student is Aabha Daryapurkar. She is going to The Ohio State University to major in pharmaceutical sciences. Her honoree is Elisa Bartel.
Hi, everybody. I had Mrs. Bartel for the first time in 9th grade as my honors English 9 teacher, and she was different from most teachers I had ever had. Of course, she was helpful and kind and funny, but most importantly, she was passionate. Each day, I looked forward to 8th period, and not because it was the end of the day, but because I had English class with Mrs. Bartel. She incorporated fun into learning and truly made me enjoy English class in general. Then, junior year, I was ecstatic to learn that once again, I would have Mrs. Bartel as my teacher for AP Language. However, that class was different than any English class I have ever taken. Suddenly, my life centered around writing essays, and I hated it. It was one of the most difficult skills to ever develop, but once again, Mrs. Bartel was incredible. She was patient and so helpful. Her class and teaching style helped me gain one of the most important skills one must have, which is essay writing. And honestly, even as I was writing this paragraph about her, I wondered whether or not she would approve of my sentence structure and flow. Finally came my senior year. All seniors know the struggle of trying to find teachers to write them the best possible letter of recommendation, but I knew without a doubt that Mrs. Bartell knew me the best and would bring out the best qualities in me in a one-page letter determining my future. And not only did she write me a wonderful recommendation, she was incredibly supportive throughout the entire process. In fact, when I told her that I had been accepted into a specific program at Ohio State, she was happier for me than anyone I had told, demonstrating her care for each and every one of her students. To conclude, I would just like to say, thank you, Mrs. Bartell. Thank you for being one of the most influential individuals in my life. Thank you for teaching me to give everything I do my very best, and thank you for being the best teacher I could have ever asked for.
Our next student is Zach DeLisio. Zach will be going to The Ohio State University. He's going to major in actuarial science. His honoree is Mr. Mike Scott.
This is now the second year in a row that I've had Mr. Scott as my teacher. I obviously cannot be happier with him. I've always loved math and every teacher that's taught it, but it's different with Mr. Scott. He has inspired me to continue on with my pursuit of math throughout the knowledge and passion he has for the subject. Last year, after taking BC Calculus, I really did not plan on taking multivariable and linear algebra this year until I heard that Mr. Scott would be teaching the class. While these classes may be extremely difficult, which they are, he has a fun way of making it all seem a lot easier than it should be while maintaining an extremely fun and difficult learning environment. Not only do I learn the most from Mr. Scott, but I can honestly say that I actually have fun every single day in his class. For these reasons, I would like to nominate Mr. Scott as not only my best teacher, but also my most inspirational.
Julia Foust. Julia will be going to the University of Pittsburgh, majoring in bioengineering. Her honoree is Mrs. Carol McKnight.
Okay. From the very first time I talked to Mrs. McKnight, last year volunteering at freshman orientation, I knew by the way she shook my hand and talked to me excitedly that she would prove to be a special teacher and an amazing person. Taking her class last year was one of the highlights of high school for me. I never dreaded her class. On the contrary, I looked forward to the discussions we would have about Huck Finn or The Great Gatsby or something completely unrelated but still incredibly relevant, like the importance of Australian accents in the world, which is an actual conversation we had. Excuse me. Of course, she is an excellent teacher and one of the reasons I've come to love writing as much as I have. But to myself and to many others, she is so much more than simply an English educator. Throughout the last 2 years, and among some of the more trying times in my life, Mrs. McKnight has been an unwavering source of support and guidance. Anything I say tonight can never fully express how truly grateful I am to have Mrs. McKnight in my life. I could never repay her for all that she has done for me, all of the time she has spent staying after school for countless hours to work on scholarships and essays or to simply talk. It is clear to everyone who interacts with Mrs. McKnight that she is deeply intellectual, but more than that, she is compassionate and truly cares about her students' well-being. Over the years, Mrs. McKnight has been greatly honored at this celebration, and rightfully so. For me, honoring her in this way is about more than just education. She has deeply and irreversibly changed my life for the better, and for that, I am forever grateful. Thank you, Mrs. McKnight.
Our next student is Emily Gaidos. Emily will be going to The Ohio State University, majoring in pharmaceutical sciences. Her honoree is Mr. Josh Sorge.
Hello, everyone. Teachers work hard every day in order to inspire at least one student every year. This year, I would like to honor Mr. Sorge for the great work he has done for all of his students, not just one individual. I remember at the beginning of the year, I was worried that having a new AP English teacher would be the start of a rough year. Last year, I had a wonderful AP teacher who helped cultivate my writing into something special. I was worried that a new teacher would not only be unaccustomed to my writing, but also not like anything that I wrote. Well, I was kind of correct. Mr. Sorge was every bit as critical as I expected him to be, but it only served to make me a better writer. I know that for every critique of a thesis, he secretly liked some of the assertions that I wrote. As the months went by, I started seeing more OKs on my papers, which I assume was a good sign. He made us write assertions and thesis statements every day and assign us projects in our free time. I do have to say that some of his projects were my favorites of the entire year. I remember doodling all over pages of a book, creating my own poem out of another author's words. I remember laughing and crying for days with my friends as we created the best and worst video documentary I've ever seen in my life, but Mr. Sorge loved every minute of it. He is one of the most understanding and supportive teachers from which I have had the pleasure of learning. An excellent teacher is embodied not only by the grades his students keep, but also by the minds he inspires. I recall struggling every quarter to maintain an A, but I know personally that Mr. Sorge does not hand out A's on essays very easily. I admire his dedication to his students and their grades because he knows just how much our grades mean to us. He would always give honest, sometimes too honest, feedback on our essays. His goal was to create expert writers and not hand out good grades to soothe the student's sanity. My parents would receive emails from Mr. Sorge scared out of their minds, wondering what I had done that day. He was contacting them to say how proud he was of me and my success in class. I may not have particularly enjoyed reading Heart of Darkness and failed to share his love for Song of Solomon, but Mr. Sorge never stopped encouraging me every day to become a better writer and student. I would come home and tell my parents how awful I felt I did on that day's essay, and Sorge would always hand it back to me with a pat on the back and a smiley face on my paper. Being a former baseball coach, Mr. Sorge knows exactly how to motivate his students. I only wish to meet more educators with his level of enthusiasm and genuineness as I continue on to college.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Matthew Greaves will go to college at The Ohio State University, majoring in engineering. His honoree is Mr. Tim McNulty.
First impressions often define what we see in a person. Some are good and others are bad. In these moments where a preconceived notion is formed about that person you meet, I can say that I start off on the wrong foot with Mr. McNulty. As a freshman, I would see Mr. McNulty walking down the hallways and think, man, this is one strange guy. His demeanor made me conjure up a person that was the polar opposite of who Mr. McNulty really was. At first, I saw a cold, unapproachable man, not to mention his hair. Man, was I ever so far from the truth. In fact, I never had heard him speak until my first day senior year. Usually, it takes a bit of time to bond with a teacher as they become accustomed to my personality. But with Mr. McNulty, this time was very short, maybe not at all. He understood my personality, and when we hit the ground running in his English course. English was always my weak spot, and I went on to have my best semester of my high school career. Much of this credit belongs to Mr. McNulty. Mr. McNulty is a child in a teacher's body. He doesn't demand the respect like some teachers do, yet we all give it to him. This balance allowed me to thrive in his English class and reach my fullest potential. Beyond this, he is one of the funniest people on this planet. From his love for Led Zeppelin to snappy, jokey responses to questions, he is quite the character. Thank you, Mr. McNulty. And this man's been teaching here 16 years, and this is his first time getting this award.
Mrs. Pelko, were you okay? Yeah, absolutely. Brigid Hayes will be going to The Ohio State University. Her major is currently undecided, and her honoree is Carol McKnight.
Take your time. Just kidding. All right. All right. So Miss McKnight has been stuck with me now for 2 years. And I gotta say, before having her as my English teacher, I wasn't really very into English. I was more math, science. I like things that had a right answer. And when I went into her class, not being able to fully prepare for her tests or in-class essays really threw me for a loop. So she really helped me through that, though, and showed me a different way to think about things and how to really construct an argument, which is helpful in more than just English class. And she would also, with her in-class discussions, really get me thinking. And if I said an answer that no matter what answer I gave her, it was never the right one, and that's fine, you know, you can't always have the right answer. But I would leave class thinking, which is something that I thought was really special that she got me able to do. Most classes, bell rings, you shut your binder, and next class. But I genuinely would leave our discussions, and I'd be like, oh, I should have said this. Tomorrow I'm gonna say that. And I would continuously be thinking about things that she had brought up. And I think that's really something that was special about her class. And beyond just classroom and academics, Miss McKnight was more than that. She helped me through a lot during the college application process. She was so willing to stay after school for hours, not just for me, for any of her students. She really cares about how we do and our futures, and she's not just ready to kick us out once the year ends. She wants us to succeed and set us up for a good future. So I'm very appreciative for all of her help during that. And you're one of a kind, man. Thanks.
I'll check notes back. Our next student is Callahan Hinckley. Callahan will be going to the University of North Carolina, majoring in business and mathematics. His honoree is Mrs. Melissa Novak.
I have had 42 teachers throughout my educational career here at Strongsville, but none have had the influence that Mrs. Novak has had on me. Mrs. Novak was my 8th grade honors geometry teacher. The experiences in class taught me to fight for answers that I believe in and to take confidence in my work. In other words, she taught me how to argue. A talent I'm sure my teachers, coaches, and parents are very fond of. The basis of honors geometry is proofs. Proofs include using theorems to prove something. Everyone can solve a proof a different way. As long as you defend your proof and prove that your solution works, then your solution is correct, a lesson very applicable in life. Mrs. Novak and I spent countless time at her desk going over my solutions, and it was actually pretty fun. She also taught me how to find joy in learning, something she does better than anyone. Even though she swore we'd play pickleball and we never have, she still has had a major influence on both my personal and educational life.
Michelle Kahle will be going to Cleveland State University, majoring in nursing. She is honoring Mr. Jeff Port.
Mr. Port was my 7th grade English teacher. What I can't recall is what we actually studied in class, but what I do remember is a quote that he had attached to the front of his podium. It was from one of his favorite books, Booker T. Washington's autobiography, Up From Slavery, and it read, "I resolve to let no obstacle prevent me from putting forth the highest effort to fit myself to accomplish the most good in the world." Mr. Port has certainly taken this quote to heart, and it is obvious when you see the way he teaches and interacts with people. He truly stood out, even amongst students that he did not have in class. He is an example of what it means to do a job with excellence, and he truly takes time to invest in others. Mr. Port has helped me to understand the value of an education and has inspired me to work hard. I cannot thank him enough for taking the time to invest in me as a student and individual.
Christina Keares will be going to The Ohio State University, majoring in biomedical engineering. Her honoree is Mr. Mike Scott.
After looking back at my time spent in the Strongsville City Schools, I believe one teacher stands out as having the most influence on my educational success, Mr. Scott. He has influenced me during these past 2 years I have taken his math classes. Mr. Scott constantly challenged me and my fellow classmates, but I believe overcoming these set challenges has allowed me to push past my own preconceived self-capabilities, seeing what I am capable of learning and accomplishing. This has given me more confidence and willingness to pursue difficult courses and challenge myself even further. Most importantly, Mr. Scott's actions inside the classroom have influenced me to select an intended major that is heavily focused on applying mathematics. This being said, I would like to thank Mr. Scott for making math a very fun and memorable educational experience these past 2 years and sparking my interest in a career in math.
Our next student is Lilliana Neal. Lilliana will go to Cleveland State University, majoring in biology / pre-veterinarian. Her honoree is Miss Brigid Sproul.
When I found out I was on the path to being in the top 5% of the 2017 graduating class, I knew immediately who I would like to nominate for my teacher nomination. It was a no-brainer for me as I reflected on the many educators I have met and the many classes I have taken that Mrs. Sproul deserves not only this recognition, but my sincere gratitude. Mrs. Sproul has not only proven to be a great math teacher, but also a mentor since meeting her my sophomore year. I have found myself many times since then sitting in her room discussing life, future plans, and most importantly, math. Whether you are telling her about how miserable your day has been, your fears for college life, or something good that has happened to you that week, Mrs. Sproul will listen to you as if you're saying the most important thing she has said all week. I still think my Honors Algebra 2 Trig class has been the best math class I've ever taken, which says a lot because our class was relocated into a pod in the library that had white walls and no windows. And off script here, to top it off, tonight she brought me a giant bouquet of lilies for her Lily. So that doesn't just say who she is. Looking back, Mrs. Sproul pops out at me as one of the most significant educators I have come across in my 13 years in the Strongsville City School system. She not only pushes her passionate students like myself to go beyond the math book, but is also able to show the skeptics real-life uses for math. Mrs. Sproul is the kind of teacher who would drop everything for her students in need. Probably the most outstanding thing about Mrs. Sproul is that she treats her students like they're adults, even if they do not always show her the most undivided respect. She does not sugarcoat real life to her students. When she and I would discuss my dreams of being a teacher, she told me without hesitation the hardships she has as an educator herself. She has inspired me to try my hardest in my classes and to always work 100% to achieve my dreams. I'm so thankful to have had a mentor and teacher like her throughout my high school career. But while this is my last year as a student at Strongsville High School, it is also her last year as a teacher. And while she may no longer be a teacher, I know that she will always be an educator to whomever she meets. I genuinely feel sorry for the students that will no longer be able to see her smiling face, hear her hilarious jokes, or be captivated by her Twitter page, which always has pictures of bunnies posing in different hats or places. So thank you, Mrs. Sproul, for the constant laughs, the many lessons, and the never-ending support that you have granted me. As Henry B. Adams once said, a teacher affects eternity. He can never tell where his influence stops.
Eric Nass. Eric will be going to Bowling Green State University to major in pre-med biology and music theory. His honoree is Miss Brigid Sproul.
Hey, how's it going? I have to be honest, I had no idea I was going to read something today, so just do with that what you will. So why I chose Mrs. B. Sproul as an educator I would like to recognize. One of my fondest memories of Mrs. Sproul's Honors Algebra 2 Trig class was during my sophomore year, was her whiteboard on which she let me write puns. It was called Eric's Pun of the Day, or something to that effect, and nearly every day I was allowed to write some stupid joke that would last most of the school day. More often than not, I tried to make them math related, but there are only so many math jokes people can stomach. I also remember clearly an assignment that we had to do where we had to bring in pictures of shapes and art made using imaginary numbers called fractals. They were put up in the back wall of our class and voted upon for the best one. It was instances like these that I remember the most about her class. It wasn't a class of memorizing or the enumeration of numbers and facts. It was an interesting class with creative emphasis. We talked and made jokes and discussed and had a good time. But there was actual learning attached to it, I promise. Who knew numbers could be so fun? I think oftentimes that these types of classes go undervalued or simply get a bad rap. But in a time when the collective creativity of society is going down the brain drain, nothing can be more integral in school. Of course, there were times when she'd get annoyed and exasperated about how annoying and loud we all were, and I commend someone who can make a career out of not only putting up with teenagers, but actually trying to teach them math. Teachers like her certainly do not get the recognition that they deserve. But when I think of Mrs. Sproul in that class, I don't think of any bad times. I always think of it as the time when I really started to enjoy math. There was something special about that class, and that really awakened in me the interest in how weird numbers are. Now here I am, 3 years later in AP BC Calculus with an interest in physics, the quantum world, and complex math as a complement, and I can easily attribute that interest all to that class. Before then, math was hard and boring and unfun, but from Algebra 2 on, math to me was the key to the world. Thanks, Mrs. Sproul.
Our next student is Megan Pederson. Megan will be going to The Ohio State University, majoring in mathematics and engineering. Her honoree is Aaron Phelps.
Looking back on my educational career over the past 13 years, I can reminisce upon all of the teachers who have stood out to me a little extra because of their legitimate passion and dedication for educating students. One teacher in particular who made a great impact on me was Mr. Phelps. Mr. Phelps was my first ever teacher at Strongsville High School, and I was a part of his first ever class here as well. As a young, intimidated freshman and the oldest sibling in my family, I had no idea what to expect about high school. Any preconceived hope I had about it possibly being easy, well, Mr. Phelps' honors American history class took that away pretty quickly. We were forced to take agonizing notes every night, and the tests always seemed impossible. For someone who wasn't very used to studying, boy, was this a wake-up call for me. It was the first class I had ever struggled to get an A in, and as the end of the year approached, I was honestly glad this class would be over. I had signed up to take AP Human Geography the following year, and much to my surprise, I discovered I had another year with Mr. Phelps ahead of me. This was the first time I was ever grateful for those terrible notes we were taking last year. As the other kids struggled to keep up with the chapters every night, I felt very on top of things because I was so used to it from the year before. Though history was definitely not my favorite subject, Mr. Phelps' teaching style allowed me to excel on tests when I least expected it. I can still clearly remember on a test I did well on, he wrote, "You may not like history, but it certainly likes you." I owe a lot of my academic success to Mr. Phelps because his teaching style definitely whipped me into shape when it came to working hard in the classroom. He taught me to challenge myself with the courses I should take rather than taking the easy way out with the easy A classes.
My first ever AP experience was a successful one, all because of him and his willingness to go the extra mile helping the other students and I. Without Mr. Phelps, I never would have chosen many of the difficult classes I did, and I know that the lessons I learned from him are skills that I will value in college and for the rest of my life. Thank you, Mr. Phelps.
Our next student is Kyle Parasuti. Kyle will be attending Baldwin Wallace University, majoring in trumpet performance. His honoree is Mr. Andrew Heyer.
All right. I would like to begin by thanking all of the teachers and staff here at Strongsville High School that have helped me and encouraged me the last 4 years to really become a better student and a better musician. The teacher who has had the greatest influence on me as a student is the renowned musical director and conductor of the Strongsville High School Symphony Orchestra, Mr. Andrew Heyer. My first encounter with Mr. Heyer was in 9th grade while I was rehearsing the Haydn Trumpet Concerto in a practice room. Suddenly the door flew open and Mr. Heyer lunged in with his contagious smile. You know, a lot of us in the music department know exactly what that's like. It's kind of frequent. He immediately began an in-depth lesson on the piece as if he had just spoken with Haydn the previous day. Needless to say, his enthusiasm and knowledge was very impressive. Mr. Heyer invited me to observe a symphony orchestra rehearsal, and I was hooked. I immediately scheduled an audition, and to my pleasure, was offered a spot in the group for the following year. Symphony orchestra was my introduction to the orchestral world and sparked a lifelong love. Every rehearsal was a journey into a different aspect of music making. From Bach to rock, Mr. Heyer covered it all. Over my 3 years in symphony orchestra, I was able to grow from the dedication and musical values Mr. Heyer employs in the classroom. One such value is the importance of musical collaboration. When sitting in the orchestra, Mr. Heyer teaches that we not only make music with each other, but for one another next to each other. Mr. Heyer goes out of his way to make himself accessible to all students and foster success in everyone. Mr. Heyer pushed me to attain goals I thought beyond my reach when I auditioned for the Cleveland Youth Wind Symphony, Northeastern Ohio Regional Orchestra, and the Cleveland Orchestra Youth Orchestra. Mr. Heyer also generously provided performance opportunities at orchestra concerts for the small brass ensembles that I organized with some of my closest friends. These student-led groups were instrumental in showing me what could be accomplished with a supportive program and, most importantly, a supportive teacher. I am grateful for the 3 years I spent studying under Mr. Heyer. Thank you.
Sydney Reik will be going to The Ohio State University. She'll be majoring in science and math education. Her honoree is Mrs. Heather McGrath.
The teacher I select as the most influential during my years in Strongsville City Schools is Mrs. McGrath. She's right there. She's my current physics teacher up here at the high school, and she has been for my entire senior year. I find Mrs. McGrath to be very intelligent, relatable, and incredibly tolerant of a diverse group of students that she teaches day in and day out. But Mrs. McGrath, from one day of my senior year, always told us that she will be brutally honest, and she always is. She always perfectly prepared us for tests and provided all of the information that was needed, but she always made sure that if we were going to succeed in the class, it was up to the effort and work that we were willing to put in, and I really appreciate that about her. Mrs. McGrath was also immensely helpful and influential in my decision as to what I will do next year in college, and I have her to thank for the fact that I made a decision at all. Because of her, I decided to go to The Ohio State University with a major in high school science education. She met with me during the day and gave me valuable personal information about the teaching field and about other science fields that I was seriously considering. With a lot of personal reflection and Mrs. McGrath's help, I hope that one day I can inspire high school students just as she inspired me. Thank you.
Our next student is Nick Simmel. Nick will be going to Baldwin Wallace University, majoring in music education. His honoree is Mr. Andrew Heyer.
A few years ago, as a freshman, as a sophomore, my bad, I had the guts to approach Mr. Heyer and tell him that he wasn't doing his job well enough. And if he followed my suggested set of guidelines on class instruction, all problems in the class would be solved, and the orchestra rehearsals would be far more efficient. Instead of putting an abrupt end to my career in music, or ejecting me from the orchestra, Mr. Heyer did the unthinkable. While keeping his cool, he diffused a dangerously tense situation, and he graciously turned it into a powerful learning experience. He took the time to reprove my mistakes and proceeded to become a valuable mentor. That experience left an indelible mark and is something I will always admire about Mr. Heyer, and I will continue to use what I have been taught as I now pursue a career as a music educator. Thank you, Mr. Heyer, for being a mentor and a role model that I can keep looking up to, and it is with great honor that I present you with this nomination.
Rohan Sinha. Rohan will be going to Case Western Reserve University, majoring in engineering. His honoree is Elisa Bartel.
Good evening, everyone. As Mr. Smithberger just mentioned, my name is Rohan Sinha. Having to give what is essentially a speech about Mrs. Bartel in front of everyone here at the end of my high school career is a pretty ironic thing. Namely because at the very beginning of my high school career, my very first speech of high school in fact, Miss Bartel gave me a B. A decision I'm sure she regrets to this day itself. And rightfully so, because that speech was phenomenal. But the reason I'd like to recognize Miss Bartel is because she stuck with me in some of my not-so-phenomenal moments in high school. For instance, this year I was rejected from my top choice university, and while that was a hard thing to go through as a student, it seemed like Miss Bartel was more disappointed than I was. She made it very clear that it's not necessarily the university that you go to that determines success in life, it's the amount of effort you put in and how you use the resources at whichever university you go to. Moreover, she made it abundantly clear that she was very confident in my ability to succeed, which, being a student with a very uncertain future, as many of us did from, I believe, November 1st to March 31st, where college decisions were coming out, that's a pretty powerful thing for a student. But that's not all I took from Mrs. Bartel's class. As many of you know, she's an English teacher here at the high school. She taught me Honors English 9 and AP Language and Composition. And I'd like to preface this by saying that, you know, reading and writing aren't necessarily things I'm very fond of. So going into her class was definitely a very, I'd say, character building experience each and every single time, the 2 times that I had to do it. However, with Mrs. Bartell, she was able to motivate me and inspire me to put in much more effort than I otherwise would have liked to in a field that I don't necessarily care that much about. Sorry, Ms. Bartell. And therein lies the next big lesson that I learned from Mrs. Bartell's class, to strive for success no matter what it is that I'm doing. And that is something that will forever be ingrained in my character. As many of you know, I'm extremely competitive to the point at which I'm sure most of you hate me. In addition to bringing the best out of me, Mrs. Bartell is arguably one of the only teachers throughout high school that I can confidently say I am homies with and is not utterly repelled by my massive ego. Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Ms. Bartell.
Sam Stelnicki. Sam will be going to The Ohio State University. She's going to major in economics, and her honoree is Mr. Mike Scott.
So I'm going to nominate Mr. Scott as my most influential teacher because he has allowed me to enjoy learning subjects that people do not often consider that exciting. Not just myself, but most of the students who have been with me the 2 years I've had Mr. Scott, first for calculus and then for multivariable and linear algebra, can attest to the fact that there is never a dull moment. Whether this is telling me that it's okay that I had to pay for myself on a date because it's the 21st century, or letting me buy a pizza for the entire class because I was hungry. He cares about what his students do, but it isn't overbearing, and although he wants me to succeed, he wants me to understand the material first and foremost. He is always there when I need him, but he's never pushy. This year, the 12 students that are in my class, as well as myself, have been able to learn extremely difficult material because of the way Mr. Scott teaches it, and the class is always something I look forward to. Although I don't want to pursue a career in math, my abilities in math may have peaked last year, since this year was really difficult. I took Mr. Scott's classes because I found myself genuinely learning new things and enjoying them, even if I'm not the best at them. Mr. Scott is my nominated teacher because he takes a very cut and dry subject that will probably give me nightmares forever and makes it interesting every day.
Mr. Scott, I mean, I'll talk to you afterwards about following school rules. Apparently we have a... Krithika Sundaram. Krithika will be going to the University of Akron, majoring in natural sciences in the BS-MD program. Her honoree is Mrs. Carol McKnight.
Nothing really. An important quality that I think a teacher should have is compassion. Someone who exemplifies this compassion through teaching and to her students is Mrs. McKnight. She is one of the most influential teachers I have had. I've had Mrs. McKnight for 2 years in AP Language and Literature, and I'm her student aide. I decided to take AP Language because I wanted to learn how to improve my writing and critical reading skills, and Mrs. McKnight was there for me every step of the way. In class, she would constantly help and encourage us to think outside the box, dig into literary works, and discover new ideas. She made me see the world in a completely different way. In addition to this, when I struggled, she would stay with me after school to help work on my essays and hone in on my weaknesses to make me a better writer. Mrs. McKnight has not only helped me inside the classroom, but outside as well. I'm saying this with all honesty that I would not be standing here today without Mrs. McKnight. She has inspired me so much to become the person I am today. High school is a time where students discover their identity and develop as an individual. They overcome obstacles to develop as this individual. When I had a roadblock in the game of life, after talking to her, I would know how to solve it. Whenever I had a doubt in my abilities or questioned the decisions I made, she believed in me and told me that I had the capability of being successful. She encouraged me to achieve my dreams and set my goals high because I would be able to achieve them, and this instilled confidence in me. She always knew how my day was going based on the quality of my braid, often saying it was a good day when the braid was tight. So thanks, Mrs. McKnight, for inspiring me to be the person I am today, helping me through my journey in high school, hearing about my problem of running into things, and making me laugh. When I was asked who my most influential teacher I had in high school was, you were the first person that came to my mind because your substantial amount of help has inspired me to achieve as much as I can in this world. I believe the choices that we make decide the people we meet. And for example, if I changed my college orientation date, I might have a completely new set of friends. Don't worry, I didn't change it. We're all good. So I'm glad that I chose to take AP Language because through your lessons, I not only became a better writer, but a better person. I got the chance to get to know an incredibly inspiring person, and I want you to know that I'm not only honored to call you my teacher, but also honored to call you my friend.
Let's give one more round of applause for our students. What a great job tonight. Each and every day I'm inspired by what our students do and our staff does here, and certainly I want to see one building, I don't get to see the whole district, but you can see from the impact our teachers have, it happens here K-12. So congratulations to all the teachers. You guys, your effort, what you guys do every day is inspiring. It makes me want to be a better principal, so great job, congratulations. I want to recognize a few people here this evening. School board member, Mr. Rich Micko. School board member, Mrs. Jane Ludwig. And certainly on stage tonight doing some heavy lifting because Mr. Breckner is not here this evening. He's on a family trip out of town, is Superintendent Mr. Cameron Ryba. And Assistant Superintendent, Mrs. Jennifer Pelko. I want to thank the people who have made this night possible, the office staff, Ms. Mary Marconi, and certainly our sound and light guys up in the booth. Let's give them a round of applause as well. When I watched our students come across stage tonight and all the powerful things they said, one thought kind of rattled around in my mind as we were finishing up this evening. I think in less than 10 hours, I'll be in a parking lot with them in a shaving cream fight. So I don't know how to, like, the juxtaposition of that in my brain right now. They were all dressed up, looked so nice, and young adults, and tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. we'll be running around with shaving cream all over themselves. So, guys, we have a big day ahead of us tomorrow. Thank you for all you do. Thank you for being your principal. It's exciting to see you guys grow and mature. I'm excited to see your next steps in life. As we're closing this evening, there are refreshments in the cafeteria. Please stick around, enjoy each other's company. Parents, you're welcome to get as many pictures as you like. I don't care what your student says to you, you're the parent. Take photos if you want. Guys, have a great evening. Thank you so much. Oh, final thought. I have programs tonight if you want a program. I don't pass them out because I like the surprise of seeing this teachers and students not knowing kind of who's nominated who. So there's programs up here in the front. If you want a program, feel free to jump up and grab it.